I was just getting ready and blew my nose really hard because I was just trying to get everything out from the night and whatnot. And I blew it so hard that I felt the muscle tear internally. It was about 2 weeks before my junior recitals. Prepping was getting all ready. I was ready. We were about done. It was the end of the semester. Things were going great. Jumped right back in Monday. Thought I was all that in a bag of chips and played 8 hours that day, just right from the get-go. The tear happened right here. Yeah, not quite a pain, but like I could tell something had just happened, and I was like, oh no. Of course, playing that much without a proper warm-up, without proper like just jumping back into it after a rest period. Not smart, don't do. I had yet to learn my lesson, and unfortunately I had to learn it in this way. Finally, I was in a lesson in that fall semester, and my teacher was like, okay, stop procrastinating, like, we need to call this guy. And he took his phone, called this guy while in our lesson, and said, hey, I have a student that needs to see you. So as we just broke it way down to how the trumpet worked, and he would teach me, and it was like inspiring because nobody had ever sat down with me to be like, hey, here are the fundamentals of trumpet, here's how it works, here's why it works, here's what people tell you that works but actually doesn't, and it doesn't for these reasons. And all this knowledge, it was like Tune Quintana was like, oh my goodness, this is a game changer.
Hey, welcome back to the show, everybody. Today I'm going to start the episode off just a little bit differently by telling a story to introduce today's guest. About a year before my injury, I was playing a gig with a guy who was from the area. We had mutual friends, and I was pumped to be able to finally get to know this fellow Utah trumpet player. And he told me one of the first conversations we had was that he had recently, I can't remember if it was a year before or a couple of years before, had torn his lip while playing the trumpet. And that was the first time I had ever heard of something like that. And that was quite the eye-opening moment for me. And we were playing I think it was Newsies, I think. We were playing in the community production of Newsies and had a good time together. But that was my first real exposure to injury for musicians outside of hearing stories about Louis Armstrong. And that really kind of started to change my perspective a little bit until my own injury really changed my perspective. But I'm glad to call this guy a dear friend of mine over the last several years, and pumped to hear his story about his injury. And at least I've heard it before, but be able to share it with you guys. So Jaden, Bueno, thanks so much for being here, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you, Clark. Thanks for that kind introduction. As you were introducing, I thought, maybe we shouldn't have met, and then maybe that you wouldn't have had to go through.
You rubbed off on me a little bit too much. It sounds like.
I'm sorry, but everything that you've done with this podcast and everything has been a great benefit to everybody, including me. I've listened to nearly all of the first season, and it's been inspiring to hear other people's stories and experiences through everything that you're doing. So, and in some ways, I guess it's good and bad, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, I even remember when my injury started manifesting itself. We hung out a few times, and I was, of course, just a nervous wreck. Yeah. And I remember the one time we were hanging out at your job, and you kind of introduced me to a principle that our mutual teacher, Ryan Nielsen, had shared with us about just kind of the stages of injury and how to recognize them in our bodies. And that really was like groundbreaking for me. Of like, we always hear like rest as long as you play, in the trumpet world, or I guess in the music world in general, but we never hear like, okay, these are the actual signs of your body telling you that, hey, listen, time to cool your jets a little bit. But anyway, I don't want to steal any of your thunder from you telling your story. Where would you like to start with that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess we could just kind of go over what what happened. And I think we've talked about this before, but I've actually had 2 injuries.
Oh, I
Um,
forgot about that. Yeah.
yeah, well, and the first maybe was like it's hard to explain, but the second was the one that we'll probably primarily be talking about. But to briefly cover the first, I was doing a performing mission for our church, for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Was out for 3.5 months in the middle of Illinois, right off the Mississippi River. I got to play with some other members of that church, and it's a very historical site for our church. A lot of significant things happened there.
Picture
And
colonial Williamsburg, everybody who
yeah,
hasn't been to Nauvoo, Illinois. It's essentially that same type of vibe.
yes, exactly. Fantastic experience. Loved it. Wouldn't trade it for anything. But it was quite a demand, to say the least. We would average playing 6, 7 hours a day, sometimes 8, and just constant stuff. Luckily, it wasn't as physically demanding per se as like lead trumpet for 8 hours a day. That would have been rough, but a lot of it was a lot of marches, kind of a lot of concert band stuff. Or a brief rundown of the day would be we'd wake up, get ready, 9 o'clock, have a 30-45 minute rehearsal to just run over music or get new music. We counted over 100 different songs during that time, so we were always playing, and we got tired of the old music, so we'd get new music and then more music, and then we'd circle back. And so that morning, that time in the morning would be for us to refresh on anything that didn't go well the day before, or get some new music. And then we would at 10 o'clock we'd have our first performance of the day. We would go on a bandwagon, a literal bandwagon, pulled by horses around this city, and play for all the guests that were there. It was a great time, but about an hour playing. Then we come back, get some lunch for an hour. Then we would go back out, do the same thing for roughly an hour. Then we would go straight to another half hour, 45-minute concert where we'd all get off the wagon, perform at a certain square. Cat's eating my headphones. Can't have that. And so then we'd have another concert. Then we'd have about an hour and a half break or so. Then we'd have a shorter 30-minute hymn type of concert. So more relaxed playing and whatnot. So that was nice. Then we'd have another hour or so break and get dinner. And then we had a big show at night. That was we were in the band, and they had some dancers and singers and stage actors. It was an outdoor show. It was, big theatrical thing, and the band was kind of the music behind. And we changed from a concert band and like hymn type of group to a show band. And so before the big production, which was about an hour and a half long, we would do a 30 or 45-minute set, and that was more kind of jazz-ish type of stuff and big show stuff and whatnot. And that was most of our day. And then sometimes there was a community band that we would play with. So sometimes that would be like another hour and a half after that. Or sometimes a concert after. So it was quite a bit of playing,
man.
And I'm going to sound so egotistical, typical trumpet player, but I was the first trumpet player. And at the time when we first started, the other 3 trumpet players were not as strong, and definitely not a lead player type of status like I was somewhat used to. So I was playing first all the time, and could do everything fine for the most part, and we'd be tired and whatnot. But there was never anything in the music written past a high D. But being a lead trumpet player, I didn't like that so much. I was looking for some higher stuff to do, and so at the pre-show stuff, I'd take any chance I could to try and pop out a double F sharp or double G, or just anything to make the show cooler and to show off. That was typical trumpet ego that would come out. And everything was fine for the first probably month and a half or so, somewhere in that range. Maybe it might have been the first 2 months, but after I just was beating myself so much trying to play these high notes, and I had some bad habits that I developed, bad technique, kind of while I was there, but definitely beforehand, um, of just an excessive amount of pressure and overblowing in the upper register, like all kinds of things that was just like, you gotta calm down. I feel like, relax, you're working too hard. Um, and I remember one morning, like one night things just weren't working, and it was a rough time. I was like, man, I can't play like anything. It's rough. We had like that community band concert or something, and so I go to sleep, wake up the next day, and my corners right here were I felt sharp pain in both corners. And as maybe this has been discussed in the podcast previously, or something that we know, sharp pain is very bad. That means you've gone way too far. I didn't know this at the time, but I definitely knew something was wrong. That I'd hurt myself somehow, and it would hurt to play. And I was like, I don't know what to do. Luckily, at that point, the other trumpet players had gone to a level to where they could start stepping in for me. So it was about a week where pretty much everything in the morning, like I wouldn't do, and I would try and nap as much as I could, because napping was like the best way to like reprieve the pain and the hurt. So I would
literal
like
rest.
Yeah, exactly. I forced myself to rest, and so I was like, okay, napping, like that's good, and so I would try to take naps as much as I could to just rest and take it easy. But then I still, even with the injury, I still had to do the pre-show stuff, because there's a lot of stuff that only I could do. There's some specific like improvisation solos and I was the only one who had any type of experience with jazz besides the drummer. So like there was things I had to do, and so I kind of just pushed through it. But long story short, like made it through the summer. After a week, things went away. And, for me, it felt like a kind of a divine intervention. Because there's, knowing what I know now, I definitely should have stopped. I probably should have gone home. I should have, should have done something. But I know that I was needed there at that time in that summer for myself, for who knows what else. And so I feel like I was blessed with healing through that, but on the condition that I would stop being stupid, because I could after some time, and the last month I could play just as much as I'd played, but I could not play higher than I needed to. Like I would try and like get up to it. I would like play a D only when it was like I had to. Anything above that, like would get shut down. I just could not keep my range up. And then at night I'd be like, well, maybe I should practice a little bit more. And I could not play. Like it was very specific. I could only play this and only this. And then I got home, and auditions were coming up for school, right? And I couldn't play at all. Like no sound would come out of my. When I finally got a sound out, it was like a 7th grade sound. So I was like, oh no. So I had to spend some time figuring that out. But so that was injury number one that was kind of saved from, and hopefully I'd learned a lesson. I had not. So then I went back to college, school for a couple of years. Things were going good. I was wrapping up my junior year, and I was getting ready for a junior recital coming up. And again, I thought I was invincible. There was spring break had just happened. Or no, it was that semester. In January, I was playing the principal trumpet in the Wind Symphony, and things were like going good, but I could tell something was just off, not feeling great. So it was kind of weird, like, and everybody was like, "Are you all right?" I'm like, "I don't know, I think so."
Was it a dull pain or a sharp pain or no pain at all? I've heard all three,
Yeah,
with brass injuries.
It was trying to recall exactly. It was it was not a sharp pain. I don't even know if I'd call it pain. Actually, it was just felt odd. Just felt off. And so, me and my teacher, we watched it carefully and I just kept going. I was like, okay. And it was fine for the most part. Well, spring break happens, and I went down to Moab and Arches with some friends and stuff, and I had some important stuff coming up, so I brought my trumpet, but only really got in like an hour of practice maybe for the whole weekend, for the whole break, and whatnot. So then I got back and on Monday, so it's about 3 or 4, 5 days of only playing an hour or so. Jumped right back in Monday, thought I was all that in a bag of chips, and played 8 hours that day, just right from the get go. And yeah, I had like an hour warm up in the morning, 2 hour rehearsal, 2 hour dress rehearsal. I ran my recital all the way through, which is full hour of playing. Then it was an hour and a half or 2 hours of the concert that night, and I ended it on a double G, and I was like, I'm so good. And then I couldn't play for like another 4 days. Like, just things wouldn't work. You'd think I'd learned my lesson. I had not. And so doing all this and all these bad habits and this excessive pressure, because the tear happened right here. And that's where the mouthpiece was just getting pinned between the teeth, the teeth and the mouthpiece. That's where the lip was getting pinned. And so, and of course, playing that much without a proper warm up, without proper, like just jumping back into it after a rest period, not smart, don't do. I had yet to learn my lesson, and unfortunately, I had to learn it in this way. But it was about 2 weeks before my junior recitals. Prepping, was getting all ready. I was ready. We were about done. It was the end of the semester. Things were going great. It was actually not. It didn't happen while I was playing the trumpet. It happened on a Saturday morning as I was just getting ready. I was just getting ready and blew my nose really hard because I was just trying to get everything out from the night and whatnot. And I blew it so hard that I felt the muscle tear internally.
Oh my goodness.
It didn't,
I forgot about this part.
Yeah. It didn't hurt right away, but I immediately knew something was very wrong. I was like, it was not quite a pain, but like I could tell something had just happened, and I was like, oh no, like, and then I touched it, and that's when the pain started happening. And I was like, oh, this is bad. This is not good news. So I texted my trumpet teacher, said, hey, this just happened. What do I do? He's like, take it easy for a couple days. Let's talk on Monday at school. We'll go from there. We talk, and nothing had improved. I'd tried resting, sleeping, and everything that had happened previously. I was trying to eat better, all the different things, and it was not hurting. So anytime I would touch it, it would hurt. If I wasn't touching it, it was okay. But anytime I touched it, it would I could tell something was wrong, and it would hurt and be that sharp pain. And so we didn't know what to do. He reached out to David Hickman, his previous mentor, and the feedback that was received was give it 2 weeks or maybe a month of no playing, and then you should be okay. I was like, okay. Obviously I had to push my recital back. We thought it might be a few weeks, then maybe a month, then maybe in the fall semester. It turned out to be a full year later. But so basically, kind of in a nutshell, that whole summer didn't get better. Nothing was happening, and I would try every week, take up the horn, play. Did not feel good. Put it back down. Come back a week later, try again, same thing. And wasn't sure what doctor to go to, and whatnot. And eventually, my professor had recommended somebody, but it wasn't covered by insurance, and my family was pretty sure there was another doctor that could help, and so it was a lot of back and forth and trying to figure it out until finally I was in a lesson in that fall semester, and my teacher was like, okay, stop procrastinating, like, we need to call this guy. And he took his phone, called this guy well, in our lesson and said, "Hey, I have a student that needs to see you. He's setting up an appointment right now." And I was like, fine. Which I'm eternally grateful for him doing, because he knew this doctor, and the kind of the procedure they went through. Basically, to put it quickly, this doctor had a small kind of ultrasound device and whatnot. And my teacher's wife, she's an artist, and she had done something to her hand, and any anything with her hand would cause extreme pain. So it was devastating, because she's an artist, she can't express herself, all this different stuff. So they had found this guy, and he had basically scanned her hand, figured out the issue, and then this was the same process that he did on me and to you, I'm pretty sure, as well.
Yep, we had the same doctor.
Yep. I recommended him to you.
Yes, you did, and our mutual teacher did as well.
Yeah. So obviously, this guy's knows what he's doing, and most of the time, this kind of stuff he applies to athletes and their muscle injury and whatnot. So he
was pretty shocked to find that he was treating two trumpet players fairly close together.
Yeah.
Like, I never thought I would ever do this in my career ever.
Yeah, exactly. So it was crazy. So basically, for those who are listening, the process that he would go through would be to draw your blood, put it in a machine, and it would spin the platelets in your blood out. And basically, platelets are a part of your blood that help stimulate muscle rejuvenation. And so he would take that stuff, the platelets, and inject it into the injured muscle at the site of where that injury happened. Like we had said, it was often done with athletes on arms, legs, and whatnot. So when he found out it was for a lip, he was like, let's see if we can do this. So I think I was the first, and then you, and then I know there's Danny Bird, trombone player, local guy in the area, who's I think also undergone that as well.
I didn't know that. I thought we were the only ones.
Yeah, at least a third, I know. So, but yeah, so it hurt really bad. As you know, it was awful. Just first sticking a needle in anywhere hurts, but especially in the lip. It was just.
And for the record, awful. We're not giving medical advice to anyone on this podcast. This is just part of our stories.
Yeah, exactly.
Do not take this as our suggestion.
Yeah, it was. Oh, man, yeah. So first they put in the lidocaine, and that was awful, and the lips swelled up. Then they put it in, and the doctor was basically like, "All right, in a week, maybe 2, you're good to go. You can play, and it'll be healed." And I was like, "Are you sure?" Like, after 8-9 months of not playing due to this injury, I was kind of somewhat skeptical of that it was just done and ready. I could play right away. So I was like, okay, sure. So, but lo and behold, a week and a half later, everything was feeling normal. It's fine. I still had psyched myself out so much from the experience and from testing all the time that I was still really hesitant for a good month or 2. But with my teacher's help and guidance, I started picking things up and whatnot. So basically, that was the rest of my college career. Was that next year and a half or so was basically just, how does the trumpet work? Like, what actually happens? Like, what are the signs of injury? What, like, when I'm actually putting air into the trumpet, what's actually happening? Like, so as we just broke it way, way down to how the trumpet worked, and he would teach me, and it was like inspiring, because nobody had ever sat down with me to be like, hey, here are the fundamentals of trumpet. Here's how it works. Here's why it works. Here's what people tell you that works, but actually doesn't. And it doesn't for these reasons. And all this knowledge, I was like can contain. I was like, oh my goodness, this is a game changer. And so basically ever since then, I've taken a lot greater care to make sure I play healthy and whatnot. And I've had a few scares where I just, in the heat of the moment playing, just go back to my old habits. And I didn't re-injure, but it definitely was sensitive and I had to take a few days off. That's happened more times than I'd like, probably 8 to 10 or so. And in those moments, I just chill, relax, take a day or two off, and it's all been good so far, which is good. But it's definitely, those habits are ingrained. But every time I get a good fundamental warm up and practice in, then I can play just fine and whatnot. So, and that's what had happened when we were on that gig with Newsies.
That's right. Yeah.
I'd been fine. I forget what year that was. Was it maybe 2021, 2022?
It would have been 2021 because it was before I got injured. Yeah.
Yeah. So
it's like right after we could start performing in public again.
Yeah, that's right. Boy, what a time. That was a fun time. That was the first time I'd done Newsies, and I was like, oh yeah, this is great. The Broadway show stuff where it's high, loud, fast, and Newsies specifically is a lot of playing, and especially with reduced orchestrations, trumpets. The only trumpet part is just like was constantly going and whatnot. So, and there's just a few nights. Did I do a show, or did you end up doing all the shows? I can't remember.
It must have been either the first show or during Tech Week, because I think you had asked me to come on as a sub or something, and then maybe the first night or during Tech Week, something re-aggravated,
like that,
and then I ended up taking the rest of the shows.
Yeah, and that's what had happened.
And I start, and that was not the healthiest time of my playing, even before my injury. That was pre-injury for me, but I definitely had some things happening there that told me that something was up for me too.
So that was, I know I felt bad that that you were thrown into that as well, but I'd learned, if I can't do it, like I can't do it, something's going to happen. So unfortunately I hadn't played in a healthy enough way to do that gig, but glad you could jump in. Then pretty much ever since is any student that I teach, bring them back to these fundamentals and teach them actually how things work. Because I think a lot of what stemmed from this injury was hearing from several band directors saying, use more air, blow more air, and do this and that. And in order to do that, if you're putting more air into the horn, especially in the upper register, there's more energy, there's more things, the air needs to go somewhere. If there's not enough, if there's the pressure to air compression ratio is off, something needs to happen. And if there's not enough pressure, the air is going to go out the sides of the mouthpiece. And so what people, especially young musicians, tend to do is when they're told use more air, they blow more air. The air's trying to escape out the side, so they put more pressure on.
But if this is not set up to receive the mouthpiece, that's where, and I'm pointing to my face for everybody who's listening on audio.
Yeah, so you put two and two together, and then and I see this all the time of high school lead trumpet players who don't have the instruction where they're bottoming out or because of the pressure, and they're using a bushy lead, which is the shallowest mouthpiece you can get. So they're bottoming out, they can't play, or if they do, it's just way too much pressure, like all these different things. And so it's been my goal with everybody that I teach to teach them how the trumpet actually works, how the upper register works, and how it all works in order to get the desired effect and whatnot. So that's been probably the biggest thing for me, and biggest takeaway for me has been the educational value that I got of how to actually teach, rather than showing up to a lesson and saying, "Great job, play this measure again and do more articulate and whatnot." But what does that mean? How do you articulate it? What do you do to make that articulation come out? You're having a hard time with the snow. Okay, well, you got it, but hear how it's like sounds thinner. This is why. Let's do it this way. And then they do it. Oh, comes out nice and open. It's just things that just young musicians just don't know. They don't have access to. Nobody cares to really tell them until they're serious players in college, but I think my philosophy is if young musicians know how to play, and they can play correctly, they're going to feel better about themselves. They're going to want to keep playing, whether or not it's a career or just for fun, rather than, you get into ninth grade and you're like, man, I'm, those kids you get into ninth grade and they like playing, but their sound is awful. They can't tongue. Their embouchure's the strangest thing you've ever seen. And they're just like, I'm not good enough. I'm going to quit. Who knows if that was the next Miles Davis, or what if that was the next Harry James, so I'm pretty passionate about, especially even with beginners. There was a kid I taught,
especially beginners, I would say,
especially beginners. Yeah. He never played a day in his life. Sit down with him in a lesson and teach him for the first 15 minutes, these embouchure steps that I'd learned, as I was rebuilding my embouchure basically. And by the end of the lesson, he had the most clear, beautiful middle G, it would rival anybody. And a kid had never played before. And so I'm like, this needs to change. This needs to be a thing. So that's my crusade in Utah, is to be one of the trumpet teachers, if not the trumpet teacher, for all young musicians.
Hey guys, hope you're enjoying the show. I just wanted to jump in here real quick and tell you about something that I'm really, really excited about. For a while now, I've wanted to create an even more effective resource than just the podcast that injured musicians can go to receive the support that they need. And recently I did just that. So write this down. Trust the Process Podcast Injured Musician Support Group. I know it's a long title. We're still working on that part. But this is a place where people can go now, injured musicians and even musicians who have gone through injury in the past, and people that help musicians go through injury, where they can go to receive the support that they need, whether that be ask questions, share their victories, share their frustrations, and overall just receive the community and the support that they need in a very proactive, intentional way. And so I just ask that you guys support these injured musicians by sharing this group with them, that they can receive the support that they need. Okay, enjoy the rest of the show. Yeah, man, as your friend, I just love to have seen the progression over the last 3-4 years now, however long it's been. Just getting to know you kind of post-injury, but hearing how, your injury has influenced everything about it, especially when I was starting to go through mine. I remember just we spent a lot of time together. I was sharing a lot of different milestones that I was encountering and things like that. I was really grateful to have you in my corner, and I just want to acknowledge you for being there. And also you hit on a lot of themes that I want to touch base with. The first being the need, the necessity, I believe, for somebody to be in your corner while you go through an injury. I personally believe that at the end of the day, you are responsible for your own recovery. Just as there are elements, I'm not going to go as far as to say is that we are responsible for every aspect of our injury. Because, like you said, there's pedagogy things that very well-meaning band directors or trumpet teachers or whoever instilled in us with the best of their education, right? But at the end of the day, it's still, the onus is on us to make the changes that we need to make. And you and I both, you've already alluded to yours, and I've already articulated on the show moments where the ownership that we needed to take, we kind of procrastinated. Right. Of our own health, the ownership of our own health.
Exactly. Yeah.
And whether that be for external reasons like getting ready for a recital. For me, it was getting ready for ensemble auditions for the beginning of the semester, and things like that. We're responsible for our own health. That being said, we can't go through this alone. In fact, loneliness, I'd say, is probably one of the biggest, the hardest, I should say, one of the hardest things to go through as an injured musician, because you've, at least at first glance, it looks like you've lost that sense of community that you get from playing
Yeah.
in a band, or even being in a lesson and sharing music with your professor or your teacher.
Yeah.
And so describe to me like how like the influence of your teachers um and that sense of community, like how that specifically helped you to come back. I mean, you've already kind of alluded to it, but like imagine like if that what hadn't been there, like how would have your recovery have been different?
Yeah, well, I think first off with my teacher, like, yeah, he was in my corner for sure. Um, I could tell all kinds of stories of how he would
And that
chastise
teacher
me.
doesn't sugarcoat. I'll
No,
be the first to
man,
say.
he chastised me all the time. I had a really big ego when he first came in, but he was I knew it was out of love and how he wanted to help me be my best. And so having him there, I mean, he literally like kind of saved my trumpet career. Well, actually, I will go as far as to say he saved my trumpet career by making that call that day because I wasn't sure if I was going to call that doctor, and I honestly don't know if I would be here without that.
Can I ask you a kind of a personal question?
Yes, go for it.
I think this will really help a lot of people listening on the show, but what was holding you back from calling that doctor?
Yeah, so it was interesting. So my kind of going back to some personal family history to give a little bit more context. My just briefly, my sister had a strange, I wouldn't say illness, but strange medical issue, and she started becoming allergic to basically everything. They went to an allergist, and like everything they did like was affecting, and it was so strange and whatnot, and it was really hard, and all this stuff was going down, and like we didn't know what to do. Get a hold of this guy who's a natural doctor, chiropractor and a natural doctor, and she goes in, and he like sits her down. He's like, "Oh, your head's not on straight." Pops in, and she immediately felt better, and yeah, like crazy things like that. I know also some other things of just like we're kind of very much of like here's how the body works, and if this is in place or if this is off, then this over here is off. And if you're we'd call him the hoodoo voodoo doctor because like he'd like twist your right toe, like index finger toe, and then your ear would pop or something like that. Like it was just like, oh, like he would fix an issue by fixing the body elsewhere than where the issue was happening.
Holistically, right?
Yeah, holistically. Yeah, that's what the word I was looking for. And he became a great friend to our family, and we saw him for several different things. And so when this injury had come up with with my lip, he was kind of the guy. My parents were like, "This guy can help. This guy can help." And we saw him. Obviously it was a muscle thing. Come to find out later, rather than like the muscle had been torn, which you can't fix by holistically doing something, unless it's long time and specific, all this different stuff. But so basically that didn't help. But my parents were convinced that, and I was convinced that would be it. So the pressure was that like, oh, but my parents are thinking this way, and in my experience, that this guy has done miracles and wonders for not only me but several other clients and patients from his clinic. So I was like, kind of like, maybe I just stay here when instead of this other option that I might. Obviously, I trust my teacher too, but he like I was like I was stuck in between kind of those two lines of thinking until finally he made that appointment for me, and yeah, I'm very glad he did because I don't know if I would have gotten the same treatment or same care or same result actually. So that might be the better way to say it. I don't know if I would have gotten the same result having seen that holistic doctor.
Interesting. Well, and the reason why I asked that is because we all have different pressures on us.
Yeah.
I mean, I read a study that I don't want to give an actual statistic because would need to look at it again. But one of the studies I read in my research in this topic was for collegiate musicians in this study, a very high percentage of them had gone through injury. I want to say it was above 60 to 70% above that, but only 25% of that group, or maybe, well, here I am just giving the numbers, but maybe I'll post the study in the show notes. But around 25% of those injured musicians, those injured student musicians, saw any help for it. The rest of them, the vast majority of them, didn't go find help, medical help, psychological help from their teachers, whoever. And one of the things that they cite is because of these external pressures. Other studies I've seen is like they live in a small band program and they don't feel they can take the time off. And it's just that, it's a hard thing to give a stance on because there are those very valid occupations of our time. But there is that line that we have to draw in the sand, right? Where we say, no, I need, like you said, he saved my career, by doing that, by drawing that line in the sand. Yeah. And I mean, I'd say the same thing for me. Same teacher helped me really see, okay, I really need to take some time off, and figure out what's going on, because if I keep going down this path, worse things are going to happen.
Exactly. Yeah. Yep, exactly. And so it's important to, like we said, have those people in your corner. So my teacher had recommended Brad Good. So I had a lesson with Brad Good online, and he gave me some exercises to try and whatnot. And then I brought those to my teacher, and he's like, I see why he gave you this, but maybe let's do this instead because he had more context to what was going on. But Brad Good didn't charge me. He's just like, yeah, man, I want to help you. I know that's happened with
he's Bobby also been on the show.
Bobby Shue, Brad Good,
both of them.
These guys, both of them. And so, and it's like it's a topic that doesn't come up often, but when it does, and it's serious, and the people who have experienced it will 100% be in your corner because they've been through and they feel for it. That's hopefully I was there for you when that happened.
Absolutely.
I feel that. I understand that was me, and so. And so getting the kind of help you need, whether it's just the support and medical help, whatnot. For me, as far as the psychological help, I didn't necessarily need anything, but the way that I coped with it is kind of through my faith and religion.
Absolutely.
And so for those who may not be religious, if you're spiritual, I really highly encourage you to cultivate that just as much as your practice and your dedication to the trumpet. I'm a trumpet nerd as much as the rest of us. I have 15 horns, over 20 mouthpieces, and all kinds of stuff. So, but I think something that helped me during that time was understanding that the most important thing to me would be my faith and my religion. And if it was hard to maybe come to this, but I think I eventually settled with if I'm not meant to play the trumpet, if I've had a great run and this is supposed to be it, then I'll it's gonna hurt a lot, but maybe I'll be able to come up with something else, right? I'll be okay. It's kind of what happened eventually. And so it was tough, and there was times I saw concerts and I wasn't participating and playing, and I would just almost break down crying. I would text friends I just want to play so bad, I just want to do it, but I couldn't. So it was definitely, I don't want to make it seem like it was a breeze or oh I'm done. Yeah, that's fine, whatever. Because that's not how it went. But I was eventually okay that if that was what was needing to happen, then I would be okay with that, and I would figure something out, and I would have that faith and trust. But so that's how I dealt with it psychologically. Now, for those who might need to see a therapist or maybe just a really good group of friends or a mentor, like absolutely do that. We're all different. We all need different attention and things for different circumstances. So, and you know yourself best, and those around you and your friends, family know you best as well. So if that's something you need to do, then that's absolutely something you need to do. If there's a different area of focus you need to go, then do that. Whatever it is that you need, make sure you give yourself ample time and attention in those areas.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that I just took away from what you just said was, I personally think, and maybe other people will disagree with me on this, that people that have gone through injury, I personally believe that in order to really come back to the instrument post-injury or move on, well, obviously, if you're going to move on from the instrument, then you come to this point. But personally, for me, one of the most freeing and healing parts of the injury was the realization that I had come mentally, spiritually, physically, even to the point where I believe that if it really was the end of the end of my trumpet chapter of my life, that I would be okay. And everyone out there listening, an instrument is a beautiful thing, but you are you are so much more than your instrument.
Yeah.
And that this time to recover is a beautiful opportunity to cultivate those other parts of yourself. I really love that word that you used, that cultivation of ourselves, our being, is really, I think, the golden opportunity. Well, the golden opportunity for that is found in this recovery time, because you have the time to invest in this personal development, whether that's your relationships, even your musical development. That's what I kind of want to ask you about next, is how you developed musically and kept yourself healthy musically during that time. But even reevaluating the habits surrounding your own physical well-being. For me, a lot of that was involved in going to the gym or getting more sleep, drinking more water. Really a holistic way of looking at your life instead of a myopic. Just touch the mic. A myopic, like I eat, sleep, breathe, bleed, trumpet, or violin or piano, whatever. Those instruments are beautiful things, but at the end of the day, we got to pack it in and still be us.
Yeah, exactly, 100%.
What was the your musical progression kind of? What did that look like during that time? Because I can totally relate to sitting in the audience. The audience is a weird view for a weird perspective for an injured musician. I'll tell you that much. But how did you stay in the game musically while you were recovering?
Yeah, I think so. I grew up playing piano, so that was a kind of a secondary instrument growing up, and so obviously couldn't do anything here. So, and I had the trombone, but obviously same boat, so I couldn't really do that. So I turned to piano and just started practicing my piano skills and working on that, and just gave me more to help me think about things differently. And I had finale, so I would kind of arrange stuff and do different things and whatnot. So there was certain things that I could turn to musically that I could still grow. My hands weren't injured, my brain wasn't injured, I don't think, but but so I could turn to those things and start working through that, and that helped me get ready for some jazz piano classes that I ended up taking later on as part of my degree. And I still do compositions and arrangements, mostly arrangements. So I only have one composition, but mostly arrangements for big band and pop tunes and stuff. So that definitely helped. I don't know if I maybe did as much as maybe I should have, but it was also a good time to kind of step back from the music world too and just enjoy the social life that I was experiencing at that time, and just maybe taking a breather. And I think it was a bummer not to play and do that. But I think it also helped me realize, like, yeah, I this is something I want to do, and keep doing. It very well could have maybe been the opposite of like, yeah, trumpet was great, but maybe, maybe I'm okay to be done and I want to pursue some other career. But
Totally.
um,
And then that's that honest conversation is the most important part of what you just said. Not
yeah,
the I decided to eventually go with trumpet, or the other path, of leaving it behind. That conversation with yourself is what needs to happen,
yeah,
right?
yeah. So, sorry, there was a little bit of a left turn there from the original question, but
That's okay. That's okay.
yeah. So that's kind of yeah. To put it in a nutshell, that's all what my musical experience was like until I could pick a horn back up.
Yeah. A lot of parallels between I think I probably got a lot of the ideas of what I did from you.
Yeah, I
Off the
remember us
horn
talking
ideas, I
about it.
mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, we definitely did. Definitely had lots of conversations about that in the early days. Um, so I love to ask a certain last few questions as we're kind of wrapping things up here, Jaden.
Yeah, for sure.
You've seen the show, you kind of know what's coming. But before I ask those last two questions, in one of my most recent interviews, the topic kind of just drifted towards interacting with the community who doesn't really know that much about injury, whether they're musicians who haven't experienced injury or researched it or whatever, or even just non-musicians. I mean, I can't tell you how many people I've talked to where they're just like,
I know what's coming.
you can like this face is just burned into my memory of like,
Yeah.
who are you kissing? Or, those
Yeah.
stupid jokes, as
Yeah,
a trumpet
exactly.
player,
Uh-huh.
as an injured trumpet player. But what is something that you wish that group of the community would know, like a letter from an injured musician to the rest of my people,
So to everybody else, like, yeah. So I mean, I think if I could have people understand is like, um, while it is funny and unique, it's something you don't hear about very often. I know it's still a serious thing. When an athlete tears an ACL, like, everybody knows what that is, and they're, oh, I'm so
Yeah.
sorry. Let me help you out and whatnot. Just because maybe a injury as a musician isn't as common doesn't mean that it affects us any differently. It's, very much an athlete. If you tear your ACL, you're a football player in the NFL, like that's money that you need to support your family. That's your career. It's important. And there's been several athletes who have had career-ending injuries and different things, and people feel for them. They understand. But for us, it's no different. So if I could help people understand one thing is that it's we're all the same. It's whether it's injury or you lose your job or whatever. It's all the same, and everybody just wants to be supported and appreciated, not made fun of or taken lightly for whatever's going on.
Yeah. I actually think that the statistics, the studies that have been done show that musicians get injured just about the same amount as athletes do.
It's crazy.
I mean,
Yeah.
the statistics don't lie.
Yeah. Exactly. Yep.
And yeah, I mean, it's so well put. I feel like when people like that's the kind of confused look is kind of one reaction that I get.
Yep.
And then other people, it is that kind of like, oh, I'm so sorry. It's
Yeah.
a very sympathetic response, probably not empathetic because they haven't experienced it.
Yeah.
And everyone out there who knows an injured musician, like the best. I mean, I'm not even going to say what the best thing you can do is because that's just unique to everybody, and just listen to what they need, I think would be a big important thing, because at the end of the day, there's no two injuries that are the same. There's no two experiences that are the same, and no two reactions that are the same. But there are a lot of similarities across the board of how people deal with this. And so just really just be willing to listen, I guess.
Yeah,
So.
I think that's probably the biggest thing that that you can do for anybody who's going through whatever, whether it's a
Yeah,
injury
absolutely.
or sometimes people just need to be heard, and so I think sometimes the biggest thing is just if somebody is there to listen, it just goes a long way, even if you don't give a solution or anything at the end. And actually, it's probably best just
Probably best.
don't give a
Yeah,
solution, don't give advice, just be there to listen, let a listening ear, let the venting, the ranting come out, and when it's all out and done, and it feels good for the injured or whoever's talking, then there's just somebody heard, and I guess that's the important thing. Don't just listen, like hear them, hear what those people are saying, um, so that when you come back to them a month later, it's not like yeah, you injured yourself, right? How's that going? Like, I already told you how it's going.
right, exactly.
So, yeah, listening, hearing people is probably one of the best thing you can do for any injured musician is just hear them out.
Totally. I was just reading a book recently. I think I mentioned it on the show once or twice. It's called Rebound. I highly recommend it. It's this lady is a mental skills coach for injured athletes, and she has her own podcast. It's basically
Very
the
cool.
same format as mine or as ours. It's really funny how that all worked out. But she talks about the different types of support that we need to get through an injury. So one of them is like informational support, and that's where doctors and our medical staff can come in to play. Emotional support, those are people that can really empathize with us. And motivational support is another one that she talked about. I'm not going to be able to remember all of them right off the bat, but motivational support are those people that you can rely on to like pick you back up and,
Yeah.
maybe give you a kick in the pants when they know you need it,
Yep. Yep.
But anyway, so there's a lot of different types of forms of support that you can give, but it's just up to the individual delineating what they need.
It's
So.
true. Yeah, it's true.
So anyway, the last two questions I like to ask at the end of the show. The first one being, if somebody were to approach you and say, somebody who may be on this interview who is going to remain nameless but is hosting it, someone like him or her who were to come up and say, hey man, I'm going through an injury and I heard you on this podcast called Trust the Process. What can I do? What can you tell me? What's some advice that you can give me? What would you tell them?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is something we already kind of went over and talked about, but making um having something else in your life that's just as important or even more important than trumpet and music. And I know that's it might be hard for some people, but when that happens, because especially if you're a serious musician, the odds are something's going to happen. You're going to have to take some time off. Every great trumpet player that I know has had injuries. Wayne Bergeron, Maynard Ferguson, Bobby Shue, Louis Armstrong, Rafael Mendez. All these people have had to deal with some sort of injury in some way or another, and for a lot of them, it was a year or more of them out of commission and playing. Um, Now, I wish I could ask all of them we could ask some of them, but for those who have passed on, I wish I could ask them, like, what did you do, or how did you cope with that? This is kind of the same question. But I think for me and for, I think a lot of people, it's like not distracting yourself per se, but like having, something that's just as important and focusing on, whether that's, if it's your spirituality or religion, or your family, or your supportive friend group, something, having something that you care just as deeply about, as the trumpet to not necessarily just fall back on, but to comfort you, your higher power, I guess some people would say. And that's probably would be my first thing, because going through an injury is traumatic. It's very hard. And so, but you know, that having that higher power for me was a big just sigh of relief, I guess, that yeah, like everything would be okay. And that's probably what kept me sane, and would I think would keep a lot of people sane if that was what if that's what they needed. So that would be what I'd say. Look for a higher power or something that you love just as much as you love for the trumpet.
Totally. Man, it's kind of a full circle moment to be talking about all this stuff with you. You've been there since the beginning for me, and I just really am grateful for you, man. You were one of those guys that I came to,
Yeah.
Not about a podcast, but that support I'll always be grateful for. It's interesting how we come back to the instrument after our injury a completely different person if we've done our recovery right,
Yep, exactly.
and the capacity that we have to bring more to our instrument also grows, which I think is just a beautiful, beautiful thing. And I'm just kind of got a million and one thoughts going in my head after what you just said. The last thing I want to ask you is, would you, if you had the opportunity to go back to that time in Nauvoo or back in your days of college, in your college days, to take away the injury, or leave that experience there, and all the experiences you've had since then, what would you choose to do?
Yeah, it's been the case for, I think, pretty much everybody that I've listened to. I don't think anybody has said otherwise, but I wouldn't change it because of the things that I learned, because I went through that experience. This life is not pretty and dandy all the time, as much as we'd love it to be. But honestly, I don't think I'd be as good of a trumpet player as I am now without that injury. Because number one, if I never injured myself and whatnot, I don't think my technique or control of the instrument would be as good as it is now. And I would just keep hitting a block, and I wouldn't be able to improve or get better. But because I had to tear the wall down, or because the wall got torn down, no pun intended. I had to rebuild it, but I had to rebuild it in a way that allowed me to build that building and that wall higher than I had previously thought possible and previously had been able to do. So, yeah, wouldn't change anything.
Beautiful. Tear down the wall. That's a good one. Well, Jaden, thanks so much, man, for being willing to share your story on this podcast today. And
of course, thank you for having me.
There's a lot of people that can relate to you, me being one of them, and many others. And it's no small thing that we're able to create this community. And so I'm really grateful for you being willing to be a part of it. Is there any where can people find you online if they want to reach out to you?
Yeah. So I just recently started a YouTube channel called Modern Trumpeter. Kind of geared towards more of what to do in the modern age in commercial music and stuff, because basically in college nobody teaches you how to play pop music or prepare for wedding bands and kind of the gigs of the day, the commercial music scene. There's no,
especially in Utah.
There's in Utah there's 30 plus wedding event party bands, and there's only for some reason 6 or 7 trumpet players in Utah that do that kind of work. So the work's plentiful, and there's in comparison there's one symphony which is no openings ever. There's a handful of jazz groups, but none are full time. Or big bands, comparatively to the degrees that are currently out there in the current education system, it's not geared towards being a modern day musician and modern day trumpet player. So I started that channel, and it's still in its infancy, but the goal is to inform any young trumpet player about how to play in a commercial music setting, what things you need to learn, what songs, and all the info that you're not going to get at college that would actually be useful. Kind of that's the goal there. And so YouTube channel Modern Trumpeter, as well as Instagram Modern Trumpeter. That's kind of the Instagram account where I host things, practice sessions, random playing things and whatnot. So hoping to grow that community out. I'm going to be starting a Facebook page here soon, kind of as a networking tool for people in different areas. Love to connect everybody with that kind of group of trumpet players and that type of playing, and all major cities in the USA. So hoping to get that going and whatnot. And if anybody has questions about that, I'm happy to answer. Or I'd love to connect with anybody about injury and just to hear their story and be that support, that emotional support. So if anybody out there is listening and needs some help or would like to connect, please do. Always happy to help fellow trumpet players out.
Awesome. Well, appreciate you saying that. To everybody out there in podcast land, you know what we like to say at the end of the podcast. Keep on keeping on and keep trusting the process. Take care. Hey, before you go, we need your help with something real quick. Somewhere out there's a musician who is going through an injury or just a tough time. There may even be an educator with a student in that situation that they don't know how to help. We need your help in getting this message to them. Would you do them the favor of sharing this episode on your socials and with your friends? Also, cliche that it may have become, leaving a rating and a review actually does help people find us, not just boost our ego. So would you take a quick second and leave us a review so that musician can find us more easily? If you want to reach out to me personally, I would love to hear from you. Just look for the send us a text message button in the show notes of the episode. You can do that on any episode on your chosen podcast platform except YouTube. If you have a suggestion for a guest or topic to cover, shoot me an email at trustprocesspodcast@gmail.com or send me a message on Facebook or Instagram. I want to extend another heartfelt thanks to my team, without which this podcast would not be able to happen. Thanks to Daniel Baldwin, our audio engineer, Kevin West, our music and sound effects coordinator, and Dana Lovell, our promotional materials coordinator. So to all of you out there in podcast land, keep on keeping on and trust the process.